Hello, this is Joseph Gillette Sr. coming to you from globalintelhub.com, the world's leading intelligence blog. And now we have a video podcast that we're doing, and we wanted to dive into something that we can all do and get our hands on. And that's super exciting for especially young people who are just learning about the world, or people who are just waking up that there's more to our history and our planet than what we're being told. And I have up on the screen Google Earth, and it's a great tool. I like to look on Google Maps and Google Earth and just look at the topography. It's just kind of a hobby and interest of mine. And sometimes I'll find an interesting place and we'll go hiking there or go exploring, and this site is really amazing. So let's go to it. So you have Google Earth loads from any side of the planet. You can just zoom right into where you are. Just scroll the mouse button forward, and we're in Knoxville, so it's just right in between Knoxville and Cookeville here in the mountains. So you can see there's this ridge here, and then a valley, and then Knoxville's in this greater valley. And we're going to zoom in to here is the site. And what's interesting is this is the site here. So when you're looking out at the site, it's pretty much due west down into this basin here. And the overlook would be due south. And this is an area that maybe was a lake or a reservoir. There's a lot of interesting features in the mountains that you can see, whereas in a place like Florida, there's probably interesting stuff too. It's just underground, or you can't obviously see it. Whereas in the mountains, everything's kind of on the surface. So this place is called Black Mountain Trail Overlook. It's a very lightly walked trail maintained by the state, and you can drive your car up here and park there. And what's amazing is you walk on this overlook, and we're going to get into the videos and everything, and you walk out into this site over here. It seems like this was built as some complex of some kind. I can't say with any intelligence what it might have been, but all these they're little now, but when you go down there, they're not little. These rocks. These rocks are huge. They're just massive rocks, and they're on top of the mountain, and they're placed like Lego bricks. In other words, there's many rocks that are square or rectangular in shape. There's cuts that are in geometrical lines, squares. There's a cube right in the center of this area here. There's a stone. Can't really see it on Google Earth because of the trees, but we'll get into that. It's a perfect cube in the middle of this place. Was it used like a spaceport? Was it a place of worship? Was it something else? Was it just an American Indian site that was used from a generation of tribes that we don't even know about? Maybe it was a 10, 20,000 year old facility. But it does have a positive energy. When you go there and you walk around, you feel this energy. And others have been there, and they've said that there's portal energy, and even that there's an inner earth civilization that lives deep under this facility, which observes people who come, who are psychic, observing with your mind as remote viewers would. And what's amazing about this site is it's about an hour from where I live. I went there many times. I went there with my family. I went there with some friends. And these interesting sites are everywhere. They're all in our backyard. And Ancient Aliens is a great production of interesting sites. Part of the reason why I wanted to put this together is to show that there's interesting things all around us, probably right in your backyard, wherever you live, whether you live in California or Florida or New York. the history of the United States, both physically and spiritually and in terms of society, we just know a very, very small part of it, especially about our ancient past. We don't know what was here before the Indians. Perhaps there were other civilizations. 500 to 1,000 years ago, supposedly, there were many civilizations in North America which were engaged in trade and had various degrees of civilization which were as much or higher than the Mayan people. They could calculate astronomy, had advanced understanding of mathematics. They didn't have, for example, concrete jungles, but they were advanced in many ways, especially if you're looking at the math metric of how advanced the civilization is. Calculating stars and some of these Indian mounds use astronomical precision that just wouldn't be possible if we're to believe the story that they were just simple people riding horses and shooting bows and arrows. And actually it's interesting about horses because American Indians did not have horses. Europeans brought horses, so this time period where there were Europeans and American Indians that you see depicted in movies and so on with horses. Horses were maybe native to North America, but they were not used by Indian tribes. They were not popularized. The Europeans popularized them. So what is this site? What is this place? That's what we're going to find out. So stick with us. And in the end, we're going to give you a Google Map link where you can click on a link, and wherever you are, you can go yourself to this place, take some photos. Tell me that I'm crazy. Tell me that this is all just a coincidence. All these rocks that are perfectly shaped like Lego bricks sitting on top of the mountain. So here's the thing. These stones are right on top of the mountain. In other words, if this was a natural formation, water would not have carved these shapes at the top of the mountain. This is not in a riverbed. And in a riverbed, in any case, you don't see the diversity of rock formations like you do here as far as cubes. What produced all these cubes? And some of these cubes, it's going to be more obvious in the pictures. They're really straight lines. What lies beneath? Of course, this is a government site, so it's going to be difficult to dig in this site, but we're allowed to go and explore. It is an open site. It's managed by the state. And there's parking, and it's accessible to anyone. You can even camp there. Another thing, before we end this intro, you can see that maybe I'm just seeing things, but I noticed these little indents that maybe this is like a fish. And if it's not a fish, the point is there are indentations which seem to be a pattern, and then at the apex of this is a little cube. So stick with us. This is Black Mountain Trail Overlook. We're digging into ancient sites and what may have been in some of these places before the civilization that we know about. Here are some other thoughts regarding these sites in Tennessee. So one thing I discovered just by looking at maps is there's, if you can see, it looks like it's rectangle open on one side. I thought maybe, what if this is a big bathtub? Now take a look at if it's colored. See, I've been here physically. These mountains are very high. It's 500 to 1,000 foot just front end mountains, and they're very straight. And if you wanted to create a lake or a reservoir, similar to how real estate developers do it, this is how you would do it. Now the super interesting thing is, see these three hearts? If you physically go here, you see a place ironically called Little Egypt. And Little Egypt is almost the faucet where this water from the reservoir exits. Isn't that interesting? Now, one last thing. Dr. Michael Salla has a witness, JP, who participates in the secret space program. And he says he went to a facility which cannot be seen from the air. And he said that it borders 3 states. Those 3 states are Tennessee, Mississippi, and Alabama. So that would put the location somewhere here. And he didn't say it's in Tennessee, but it could be in Alabama, actually. It could be in Alabama. But I have a feeling it's in Tennessee. I could be wrong. That's just my instinct. But what's interesting, it's right near Huntsville, Alabama, which is where the rocket program started. That was Project Paperclip. All the Nazis were there. It's an interesting part of America. It's also where NASA is, and now all the defense contractors are there. And so if we go just by exactly where the 3 states meet and go out from there, concentric circles, there are some suspected areas here. These are state lands, could be here, but really it could be anywhere in this region. It's very lightly populated, and in some of these mountain areas they're just impossible to get to. And I was looking at a different part of this Appalachia area recently. There was a photo of a circle. They said it's a portal near Chattanooga, and that would be in this area. Originally, I misinterpreted the message from JP. I thought he said Georgia, Tennessee, and Alabama. That would place it right here by Chattanooga. But in any event, the point is, we're talking about this Black Mountain site. All around these mountains in Appalachia, in these states here, going up all the way to West Virginia, Pennsylvania, and up to New York. These mountains may be some kind of shelter or a transportation system where you just have an overwhelming number of mountains. And there's another thing. For example, I got a bunker. Being a prepper, I got a bunker, and I was going to put it in a property in North Carolina, and some things changed. And talking to the bunker guy, Tennessee is actually bunker country. Of all the bunkers that are installed, there's more bunkers in Tennessee than several of the next states combined. I mean, there's a few in New York, some in California. It's obviously spread out. They can be anywhere, but Tennessee is really bunker country. It's also cave country, so it's also the state with the most caves. There's 10,000 known caves. So I'm just feeling and thinking that maybe Tennessee is where the inner earth merges with the surface in a way which is more porous and more connected in that way. Whereas if you go on the west coast, Arizona, New Mexico, anything underground is deep, deep underground. So that's cool about Tennessee. And you can go in Chattanooga to Ruby Falls. There's many caves you can go to that are open to the public. There's caves everywhere. There's caves that you can just go to, and others you have to get a ticket. There's one near Knoxville where there's a lake. It's called Lost Sea Caverns, and you're on a lake on a boat in a cave. It's an amazing experience. But going back to this spaceport, so if it is here, whether it's here or wherever it is, it seems like there's a lot of sites here in the mountains, whether it's because there's a high amount of a certain kind of quartz, rock, or it's just convenient, or it's easy to build in this area, or perhaps there's an ancient connection to this Cumberland Plateau area all the way up to West Virginia. And going up to West Virginia and the mountains part of Virginia and Kentucky, you've got also a lot of U.S. government sites, Ravens Rock, you've got just tons of sites, and of course mining and lots of caves and whatnot. The FBI is in Charleston, West Virginia. They do all their fingerprint processing out of there. A lot of interesting sites up in these mountains. So I just want to point that out, and there's probably stuff everywhere. That's what's so exciting and why I want to share it, is if I found this, near my house, an hour from my house, there's probably so many unexplored places just in the United States. I'm guessing just thousands, or at least hundreds.
Now let's take a look at this Black Mountain Trail overlook on Google Maps and Google Earth. So you can see first on Google Maps there's an outline here, and we're going to zoom out, and you see from up above it doesn't look like much. You can see some just pattern, and if you open it in Photoshop, now look at this. See, these rocks form some kind of pattern. Is it a fish? But what's interesting is the main site here is kind of either in the fish's mouth, or whatever the pattern is, it's at the end or the apex of this pattern. And if you go to this place, there's a cube rock there. This cube rock is right in the middle. That's what's really interesting. If we go back, here is where this rock is. Here is where this big rock is. Let's look at this rock from another side. So here we have one other side of the rock, and then we're going to go around it. Now what's weird about this rock is it's almost a perfect cube. There's some wear, but all the surrounding rocks are rocks. They're different shapes and sizes. Here's a cube in the middle of this field, and the field is a valley with a wall rock around it, almost as if you put this cube in the middle of an area by design. It does not look natural. It's not natural at all. So here it is from the other side, and here it is from yet the other side and the other side. Now you can see here it is from a far distance. Now this was in winter. In the summer you couldn't even see it because this would be all greens, leaves, and bushes. But in the winter you can see it. It's right there in the middle. What it is not clear, but it's definitely not natural. It's impossible that a rock could form like that just out of nothing based on water, especially it's at the top of the hill. See, and where this rock is, you have a view into this valley. Let's go back to the Google Maps. So this rock is pointing here. You have a view of this whole valley here from that rock. So let's go to Google Earth, and here's a very interesting thing. Google Earth can do a time lapse that can play from 1985. So let's play this area from 1985. It's right here. You can see this. This is it here. It hasn't changed much. You can see some of the development to the right of it, but so that's interesting. So as we look on different layers, it appears that it's simply not natural. The point is that these rocks here, here's where this cube is here. This is it. Now, this is an NSA. They don't say that. There's not a sign that says this is a surveillance tower. It says it's an FAA tower, but it's a surveillance tower. Let's put it that way. Government surveillance tower. Right above it. And it seems like there's some kind of shapes going on here. So that's interesting. And you can look at Google Earth, Google Maps yourself and verify this. It's not something that an artist did. And I've been to this site. I've walked all around here. I've walked down to this overlook. It's a beautiful hike. So that's looking at the different Google Maps and Google Earth that we have access to. It's very interesting to look at it from a bird's eye view. combined with being there, it's triangulation of information. It's just not natural. It cannot be. Who made it, what made it, or how it was made, no idea. I don't have enough information or knowledge about such things, or the history, or the possible construction techniques that we're not aware of, to make any kind of even speculation. So it's just a total blank. But there's a very positive energy from this place. When you go there, you just feel the energy. It's very difficult to describe unless you're physically there. And I'm sure that everyone watching has been to a site like that before, where you just feel this energy. I've been to a couple sites in Malta. I was in Gigantia. I was never in Stonehenge or Giza, but in this Gigantia, you can feel some energy. But this is a different kind of energy. This is almost like you feel you're alone there, but you feel like you're with other beings, but you feel good. You don't feel nervous. Like when you're in New York City, you're in a big crowd of people, and some people feel nervous. I was recently in Los Angeles, and it's not a good feeling. This is a good feeling. You feel like you're surrounded by almost like family, if that makes sense. This is down the staircase. All the corridors, just like they were a long time ago. I'm coming. This is the top of the formation, and you can see these rocks are kind of big, and they're kind of like squarish. But what's weird is they're all centered around this square rock in the middle, like Stonehenge. If we come up here, we can see this rock in the middle. See how it's...
I made a podcast.
Here we're at the top, and you can see this square in the middle. The square could be the place of a portal or some sacrifices or rituals, ceremonies, and it has an amazing view of the valley. If those trees weren't there, you're at the top of a big mountain, and just up there on the top, you can't see it from here a little bit, is the NSA listening facility. What a coincidence. Why would the NSA choose this Stonehenge looking location for their NSA facility? Maybe because it's on the top of the mountain, or maybe there's some ancient energy here for some very, very past civilizations. Look at how these rocks are kind of separated. And there's corridors where you can walk in between. Doesn't seem natural anyway. This is the top of a rock near where this rock is. You can see over the hill, sunset. Amazing view. And here, here's it starting with the NSA surveillance ball. Then we've got these big stones cut, or seems to be cut, and they're all around this kind of cube in the middle. It's like a perfect cube almost. See? And then in the distance, see the beautiful sunset, and you can see the view if the trees weren't here. But you can see the mountains in the distance. Like this was part of some kind of big complex at some point. The biggest red flag sign is this cube that can't be natural. Some of the other ones you could pass off as natural from water or whatever, erosion. But some of these formations are just, seems to be too unusual. And then you've got, of course, this baby here. Hello.
It looks like an avatar. Oh my God, it's so peaceful here. Those trees are huge. They're so peaceful here. They're so...
You can see in the winter all the mountain. There's no brush. The NSA facility.
This is the trail out there. This is the overlook, viewing south. More of the overlook. It's a beautiful view of the valley. Many rocks like this, just all over. And there are big gaps in between the rocks. That's the overlook. Here's another example where you can see several rocks next to each other. It'll zoom in. You can see that they're cut so that you can walk through or something can fit through. Or perhaps that was the foundation for some larger structure of some kind, using some wood or metal. This one looks like it's turned on its side. Here again. And some of these passageways you can walk through, some are too small, but all the rocks are divided with these thin, flat, wall-like structures. There's the cube in the middle of this field, and here it is again. It's just right in the middle of this huge clearing, and it's facing this outer area. So this is the other side from the cube. So the cube is surrounded by other rocks. The narration is important because unless you're physically there, it can, if you just look at one of these photos, it might not seem so impactful. But if you go there physically, it's very obvious that this is not naturally placed. In other words, this is some kind of design where you have this rock in the middle and it's surrounded by these other rocks, which are cut similar to, that's the radar, they call it, or the NSA listening facility. The rocks are cut like cubes or rectangles. And you can see here is the cube in the middle. It's very obvious. And it looks like on some of the rocks there's some scarring from cuts, almost as if you took a saw to it, you would leave some marks. And I'm not referring to those potholes. There's some, it looks like some kind of blade or laser or something cut these rocks. And that's me just to show perspective of, this is a very narrow stairwell. This is the rock that's interesting. It's either fallen or slanted, but you can see these angles are not natural or circular. And if supposedly they would say that this was caused from water erosion, but there's no water and it's at the very peak of a mountain, so how could water cause shapes like that? Those are cuts. It has to be cut. Or they fell from the sky like that. There's no other explanation of what these could be. This is a view from on top of one of the rocks. I climbed up. There you can see the cube. So the cube is surrounded by these other rocks, which that's the cube. You can climb up on and then look down. And there's a flat on top of the cube, and this is the view from the cube. There it is again. Different perspectives, and you can see in the videos that as you're walking through it, it's either designed for people or animals to go through these passageways, or they were some kind of support foundation for a larger structure that was on top. And this is just all the data. I encourage anybody to debunk this, go out there and tell me that there's some obvious explanation that I'm missing, but I've talked to the state archaeologists and other people, and the mainstream explanation of how this is positioned is just not sufficient when you see this. It doesn't make sense why it's on top of the mountain like that. And it's as if this site was chosen and the structure was built there. It's not that nature, why would nature decide randomly to put all of these objects in that pattern at the top of the mountain? It just doesn't add up. So it's a great site to visit. It has a wonderful hike to the overlook, and also if you do the loop, it's an amazing hike. It's about 1 hour from Knoxville and probably about an hour from Nashville. Didn't think about that, but it's kind of in the middle. It's closer to, maybe even closer to Nashville. It's in between Knoxville and Cookeville, and that's on top of the rock on the overlook. It's an amazing view, and these are pools from the rain that had fallen. You see lots of birds, hawks, small animals. Not too many bears, or what I read, there weren't. This is not an active bear area, but there could be. It's Tennessee, but this is not. The Great Smoky Mountains is where most of the bears live. And what are those black stains? So this is possibly an ancient lake. If you look at the map, that's the area below where the overlook is looking. And this is from Photoshop, looking at from the up above, like it's a fish or some kind of object. Here's an elevation view.